Bonjour et bienvenue à CX Garage. In this video I'm going to proceed with the brakes, but before doing that I want to address an issue I seem to have with the steering rack. I'm told there is supposed to be a bit of play in the steering rack on the Duravi steering, but there is a lot more on this side than the other side. It doesn't feel wrong on the right side, but on the left side it feels wrong. Let me show you and then I'm going to attempt to fix it. Because if we focus on right here, this is the inner track rod end, I think I'm going to call it. I'm not sure it's the right name. There is a built-in damper in that. But let me try to move this in and out and show you. It is moving and clunking. On the other side, it's also possible to move it slightly, but it's springy and firm. On this side, it got looseness. So I'm going to remove that little part in there and swap it for this. This should be the right one, but this one is solid in this area. This one is not. It seems to be able to move in and out right there. I've checked the part number over and over again, and this is supposed to fit this one. So I think what they did is they revised this part and made the dampening inside of here and not on this one. That seems more safe also, so it makes sense, I think, but I don't know. But I hope it will just fit. But to remove that, firstly, I will have to loosen the big nut right there. And then I'm going to count the revolutions so I can put it back the same way and not lose the traction or the alignment completely, I hope. So let's try to loosen up that. Yeah, there we go. Behind this is a locking piece of metal that locks the inner ring to it. I'm just gonna do that, undo that, but I think it will be hard to show you. But I will do that. Once again, it is just slightly different than everything else I have been working on. And it's difficult to grab it in here, so I have decided to take it off in the front. This nut defines where it's supposed to go when I'm putting the new one in. It might be a little bit off, but it could be anyway. And I might end up just checking the alignment anyhow. So there we go. Now that is off. So this is the old one, and this is the new one. I just checked the sizes, and they are the same. Apparently there are some differences between some of them. And for some reason, the spare part didn't come with a new locking ring, which is sad. So I'm going to reuse this and just tap it in another location. I'm also going to put on some Loctite. I might end up regretting that in the future, but I don't want this to come off. Spin that one in. There we go. And then I just need to bend that tab back in. And there we go. It is now in and tightened up. I hope it is in the ballpark, at least for the alignment. It is at the same position as before, but you never know if it's completely the same size, so I might have to do some measurement along the way. Next up, I want to change the handbrake cable because that is broken. And it goes in there. And then it goes into the cabin. I just removed the side panel right there. And I need to change both of them, so I just want to undo them now. I actually don't think I had to remove that clip in the middle because now I got one of them out. It's just, the split is just put down there and then by gravity it's kept there. A bit surprising actually. Yes, I got the wrong tools right now. But I'm in here. And if I can get this out without climbing out of here, it'll be very fine. Just removing the middle one as well, because then I can get a better, then it will be easier to grab the rest of it. I don't even know if you can see what I'm doing, to be honest. They are now loose. I think they can just be pulled from the outside. But just because the cable goes in here, and then all the way in there, and then into the firewall. And I think you can see that it will be very difficult to film any of this, let alone do it. But I'm gonna do that and then take you back when I have fitted the new cable. And there we go, 2 brand new Handbrake cables is in place. I will explain the screwdriver a little bit later. And oh yeah, that was really easy, so don't ask why I got a new set of clothes on and my beard is a little longer and all that. It is in place, and that's what's important. You can see it goes in there, and then underneath right here, you can see it up there, and my hand can almost reach that spot, so that's brilliant. You can also see that I have changed the other one. I just noticed the wire. That right there I have knocked off while working on it. That could be pressure sensor, brake light maybe even. Not sure, but I will have to check if it works. Anyway, up there is the cable. As you can see, I've changed it in both sides. I have also adjusted the handbrake mechanism. It's a Citroen, so it's very interesting with the eccentric, the weird looking nut right there is an eccentric nut, so you can turn and move the arm in place so it touches. I've done that on both sides. I also freed up all the joints. There are 4 joints actually, that needs to be able to move. So it is not a big surprise that this handbrake mechanism is isn't known for being the greatest system. I think it's just fine. It just needs to be lubricated pretty often. According to what I found out, is it's a good idea to lube this system up at least once a year. It's also in place right in here. It's important to balance the cable so that puller is straight and not turned. It's a compensator, so that if something is a bit weird, it will compensate and even out the pressure. But it's supposed to be like that when it's well adjusted. And right now you will see that with the screwdriver I can demonstrate that the disc is spinning freely. Then in the cabin, in an MOT station in Denmark, it needs to work after 3 clicks. 1, 2, 3. And it is completely stuck now, so that is fine. The handbrake mechanism is now working. The calipers, I think, will also be working after a bleeding, but I will have to change some brake lines before I can bleed it. I got one in there, but unfortunately I also got a couple underneath that I found for the rear. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then when that is done, I'm gonna bleed the system. So be back in a minute, maybe with a bit longer beard again. So I'm changing some of the brake lines on this car because they were pretty decent, some of them, or most of them actually, but some of them just had some rusty areas that I could clean them up and it looked all right, but then I just got cold feet and decided to change them because after all it is brakes, it needs to work. So right now I'm changing one of the rear brake lines, and of course Citroen didn't want to do it like everybody else, so they decided not to use brake hoses, for the rear axle at least. Instead they used this coil kind of brake line. That way it can turn with the rear axle without giving the material too much stress, and therefore a rubber hose is not needed. Very clever, Citroen. That means you don't have to make a rubber hose, but you have to make a very complicated piece of brake line, and it's not just something you can buy, at least not now, so it's a bit difficult to make, but I'm gonna try anyway. I found a piece of pipe that is pretty much the same size as the coil. And then I'm just gonna spin that around like this. So now I got the coil part of it fixed. Then I just need to measure how long it needs to be and make the flares like before. There we go. I created a new rear brake line. I have not bended it into shape back here just now because it's very difficult to get it in and out. So I will do that while I put it in there. I also removed this bracket from the old brake line and put it onto this one with a rivet. So I'm going to refit this. So I am finally done with the brake lines, I hope. At least all the brake lines are good now. I still need to check some suspension lines, but this is the long brake line going from the front to the rear. I thought that was one of the good ones actually. Then I noticed a bit of rust at the end and I didn't want to take any chance, so I just changed it. And also, this is a part of it that I didn't see because it was concealed. As you can see, it's pretty rusty. And right there, it's really thin also. And let's just, for the fun of it, try to bend it. There we go. So, even though this car actually was working just fine, the brakes were just fine, it was not leaking from anywhere, this brake pipe was so close to failure. So it's just nice to know that now all the pipes are pretty much changed and are in good condition. Let me just show you what I have done. Of course I did change the line in there and also the rubber line, but that is new and that's the case on both sides. Then down here there is the long brake line going to the rear. It runs in that channel up there. It's a little bit difficult to see because it's up there, the shiny one in the rear. That one goes into that joint, that connection right there. The rear brakes on the CX is connected to the suspension, so it actually can feel if the suspension is under load, and by that also the brake pressure, because you don't want a lot of brake pressure at the rear without any load on the rear, but you will want more pressure the more weight you get in there. And that's very clever made like this. So one line comes from the brake thingy up front to this and then continues to the rear wheel. And then it goes over into all this mess over here. You will notice that everything is still wet because I need to clean it off. But over here there is the brake line right there that goes up to that spiral thing I showed you earlier that I made. And I also changed this that goes from the height adjustment thing and up there. So a lot of pipes has been changed. Out here you will notice that I have changed this one. That was the one I showed you earlier. Even though in the previous video I decided that the brake line was just fine. And to be honest, it would have worked for a while at least, maybe a couple of years. But it was getting a bit crispy at the ends, only at the ends actually. Now it's all new and fine. And it is the same on the other side. I have made a spiral thingy for this side as well, it's in there. So yeah. So now the plate in the steering rack is fixed, the handbrake is fixed, the brake lines are fixed. I'm not going to bleed it in this video because it's very late at night and I will wake up my family if I start this beast right now, so it will be in the next video. All I think needs to be done before an MOT attempt is the rest of the rust on this side, a couple of holes in the exhaust system. I need to do something about the wiper mechanism, it's completely stuck. And then I need to check the lights and all that, but I'm getting pretty close to the first real MOT attempt in this car, and I'm really looking forward for that. Remember that you can support me on Patreon if you like, and to be honest, the more Patreon I get, the more videos and more cars I will be able to save and make. That is all for now. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.